Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the stage William Murdoch, Executive Director of the Mid-Ohio Regional Planning Commission.
And thanks to all of you for attending MORPC's 2016 State of the Region today. You know, as an association of local governments, your leadership and support is so critical to our region's success and to the work that we do together. So I want to thank all our commission members, all our community and business partners here today, and especially thank our generous sponsors listed before you and in your program who made today possible, and we should applaud for them too. And although I won't make them stand up, I want you to know how proud I am of the MORPC team that is in the room. I want to thank them for the incredible work they do. They inspire me every day with their passion and expertise for what we do for Central Ohio. So, change. It's the hot topic in Central Ohio. And you know, we visit with all of our MORPC members throughout the year, and change is always a part of the conversation. Whether we're in New Albany or Etna Township, Whitehall or Canal Winchester, and you know that MORPC's work is always to help those communities get ahead of change. And that's why 2 years ago we launched Insight 2050 with our partners at Columbus 2020 and the Urban Land Institute Columbus to examine the effects of population growth and changing development over the next 35 years. And I tell you, we've learned a lot. We learned that growth will be very different in the coming years than it was in the past. And we've learned that how we grow can result in dramatically different impacts and outcomes. And we also learned that we need better tools and strategies to leverage growth so we can make Central Ohio even better. And you know, there's been an overwhelming response to Insight 2050's findings because Central Ohioans care about how growth shapes our region. And evidence of this, and very busy MORPC and ULI and 2020 employees, we've made over 85 presentations to 3,000 people about Insight 2050, and that doesn't even include the media coverage, the website, the e-newsletters, and engaging with community after community about growth and how it could change us. And we couldn't have done this without your engagement and without the support of local governments, local foundations, and especially two outstanding regional leaders, Insight 2050 Chair Jaromir Steiner and Columbus 2020's CEO Kenny McDonald. Thank you all for your valuable guidance and support on this important project. You know, I think since it's been 2 years, it's important to reflect on the progress that we've made by sharing the latest on Insight 2050's metrics. So I want to look at, with you, what happened between 2010 and 2015. And if you know MORPC at all, you know that as a transportation group, we always want you to be safe by buckling your seatbelt. I mean it here, you may want to buckle your seatbelt for this part of my talk, so just hang on. So first, we predicted growth. Our region would add 500,000 people through 2050. And that sounds like a lot, but some of us are asking, could it be even more than that? And now you know that MORPC is always conservative and cautious with our forecasting, and we want to take a look at the data through that lens. And so we did. So since 2010, Central Ohio has added 115,000 people. That's more than we predicted. It's safe to say that we're confident now that we'll add at least 500,000 by 2050. And now there's many variables to consider in this, but you need to know, and you may have seen it on the front page of the Dispatch this morning, if this remarkable growth continues, it's possible we reach that 500,000 mark 20 years early by 2029. And that puts us on pace to add upwards of 1 million people through 2050. You know, faster growth can be exciting because it brings new opportunities, but it also makes it more urgent to plan ahead. And we can't be afraid to tackle the challenges that growth brings, like with transportation and workforce and housing. So to dig just a little deeper, we're watching some of those new concerns really closely, and I want to give you an example. It appears that Central Ohio is not keeping as many people between 30 and 39 as we expected. And this is really critical because these are valuable workers who seem to be leaving the region just after they get some great work experience under their belts, but before they start families and before they buy a home. And so I think it's pretty clear that even though we're growing faster, we can't take our growth for granted. And we think this data shows that we need to work harder to provide skilled workers the choices they need in housing, transportation, and community amenities so that they can thrive and stay here. You know, growth also affects land development, and Insight 2050 examined 4 scenarios of how we grow as a region, and very different results played out if we grow as we have in the past, or if communities begin to focus their growth. And so how do things look so far? Well, we're still developing farmland and green space. In just the last 5 years, wrap your head around this, we developed 25 square miles. That sounds like a lot, and it is. But what's really interesting is it's not as much as we expected. And what even beyond that, nearly equal amounts of that growth are happening in areas that are rural as those that already have infrastructure. So infill and redevelopment are really taking a leading role. And at this pace, we'll have developed about 112 square miles by 2050, which is still less than the 270 our communities had planned. And so even as our growth is accelerating, it appears that the market and the communities are already adjusting and responding with more focused growth. And that could have some positive benefits for us. We're losing less farmland as a result. More development's happening in places where there's already infrastructure. And that uses fewer government resources, it could reduce congestion, and it could use infrastructure more efficiently. All right, so on to housing. We're on target to build at least 300,000 new homes by 2050. And what's really interesting is over the last 5 years, the significant growth was in multifamily. 2 out of 3 housing units in Central Ohio were multifamily. And so especially if growth is coming quicker, we think our housing challenges could actually become more urgent because it could worsen housing and affordability crisis, and that could antagonize everything from workforce retention to poverty. We think that our workforce needs more housing choices, and we need to focus on this as a regional issue. And there's really good news too, because there's significant job growth. And clearly, our economic development professionals, MODE, our planners in the region are hard at work because Central Ohio's added 122,000 new jobs since 2010. You know, change and growth aren't off in the distance. They're actually here today. And there's already urgency, and many of you know this, in many neighborhoods struggling with new pressures. And we think it's clear from this data that although communities and the market are responding to changing demographics and market demands, we think that more work needs to be done. Because if our population is growing faster, it's even more urgent if we hope to outsmart and avoid the challenges of our fast-growing peers like Austin or Charlotte, who are great places, but they're really struggling with congestion and the cost of housing. We think we need to invest in more smart tools and smart infrastructure today so we can get ahead of that growth. And I want you to know that our MORPC team is engaged and ready to help you do just that. Our Insight 2050 team is developing smart technical and communication tools. And in fact, a lot of the work that we've been working at MORPC over the last year is helping Central Ohio get ahead of change. So I want to share a couple examples with you. And so a great example, we completed the first ever impact of trail study about our Central Ohio greenways. This study confirmed a couple things: that our trails are popular, that they're good for local business, and they're an important community asset. And it also confirmed that our very quickly growing region wants even more. And so we're doing just that by working with the newly formed Central Ohio Greenways Board to fund and build more trails, so we're taking that system to the next level. And just last week, we actually released a new strategic plan for Greenways too, so work is happening. And I want to thank its dynamic leaders, Columbus Rec and Parks Director Tony Collins, and Delaware Parks and Natural Resources Director Ted Miller. This is really exciting. We have over 120 miles of trails in Central Ohio, and we're just getting started. And so MORPC's also been busy helping households in need deal with change. And our energy team worked and helped more than 15,000 families over 30 years be more energy efficient, safer, and comfortable in their homes with weatherization and home repair. And we can only do this through strong partnerships from Columbia Gas Ohio, AEP Ohio, Franklin County, and more. And this isn't just about energy efficiency. This is a tool to reduce poverty in a growing region and the burden of home energy costs on our workforce. Remember, we want to keep them here. So in advocacy and public policy, MORPC provided communities too to deal with legislative change, and we've shared our goals and interests from DC to the State House about key issues like transportation funding, safety, water quality, energy, redevelopment. It's been a busy year. That's just naming a few. And looking ahead, getting ahead of change is driving next year's agenda too. So just next week, This is real time. Just next week, the Commission will adopt a plan for our transportation future, the Metropolitan Transportation Plan. This is $19 billion of transportation improvements planned through 2040 for roads, highways, biking, walking, transit, all of it, including logistics. And I mention that because this huge growing part of Central Ohio's economy needs to be nourished and leveraged. And we're doing just that with a Rickenbacker area study that'll be underway really soon with a dozen community partners. And that's going to help support the investment that our friends at the Columbus Regional Airport Authority by developing a growth strategy for this area over the next 10 to 20 years. This is one that's going to benefit all of our communities here in Central Ohio. And Insight 2050 showed that our population over 65 is doubling. Our speaker today will talk a little bit about that too. So we got in front of that and we've launched Age-Friendly Columbus to plan for a higher quality life for older adults. We're thrilled to work with Columbus on this. It will help the whole region, and kind of like our performance earlier, this is so meaningful to so many of us to take care of our older adults as they have taken care of us. And so we're excited to work on this and want to thank the leadership of Mayor Ginther, Chair and Councilman Stinziano, and Vice Chair Fran Ryan. And you got to know this, we need to thank our 100 volunteers and our funding partners. This project's going to be so impactful and incredible. And finally, today's about the urgency to plan for change. I think you've picked that up. So not to brag, but it's so much easier to do this in Central Ohio because we're a smart and open community. And to brag just a little bit, MORPC's team is developing a smart tool that's going to help us do just that, the Regional Data Lab. This is going to be a centralized website to connect users to credible open data about Central Ohio. It'll help on everything from social issues to economic development. And I want to thank Gahanna Development Director Anthony Jones and 2020's Research Director Jung Kim for leading the task force that came up with this smart concept. Oh yeah, we should clap for them. And talking about smart, you know, it's so perfect that the Smart and Open Columbus was named the world's most intelligent community last year. And it's why it's so appropriate, and we're so proud that they're a top 7 finalist for USDOT's Smart City Challenge. So we should give them a round of applause too. You have to know this has been an outstanding regional effort. Our communities have given so much outside and around Columbus, including over 100 support letters, because we know this is a transformational effort for the whole region to embrace technological change in transportation and really help our community get ahead of growth. And we're rallying around this Smart City Challenge so much that opportunities are happening before the competition is even finished. So there's grassroots groups like Startup Weekend are joining in the call next weekend when 100 people are going to spend 54 hours to build a dozen innovative and practical solutions focused on smart city. We aren't waiting for change to happen, we're getting in front of it. And MORPC is happy to be a supporter of their proud effort. And so there's great inspiration in these smart efforts. It's not smart to wait on the future, or it's smart not to wait on the future, but to get ahead of it today. And we now know that Central Ohio is growing even faster than we thought. And so I want you to know that we're here for you. Our MORPC team's ready to do more with you to get ahead of, and maybe, just maybe, start to embrace that change. So speaking of embracing change, change is also happening at MORPC on our board. So we have a brand new board chair, and I want you to help me welcome to the stage MORPC's new chair, Matt Grayson.
Thank you, William, for your opening remarks. I'm honored to briefly address you today. And as this year's chair, I have to say that I'm once again heartened by the diverse group of leaders that we have gathered for the state of the region. MORPC is very fortunate to have your support and your willingness to engage in continuous efforts to advance Central Ohio. So you probably know this, MORPC is made up of 62 local governments. We're cities, townships, counties, villages, and other regional governmental entities. For example, like Metro Parks, by the way, who just opened the 19th Metro Park this morning in Grove City. Our board members are dedicated officials who work not only in their local communities, but in common cause for Central Ohio. I would like all of our MORPC board members to stand and be recognized for their selfless service. Thank you, and it is such a pleasure to work with such wonderful officials. As I take on this new role, I want to take a moment of personal privilege, if I may. I want to express my gratitude to the Worthington City Council. Like all of our community members, the Worthington Council members recognize the value of MORPC. The fact that our success as a community is integrally tied to the success of our region, and that we must collaborate with our neighbors. MORPC board member and Worthington City Council President Bonnie Michael and members of the City Council are here today, and I want you to know that MORPC and I are extraordinarily thankful for your support. Each of our communities has civic leaders and governmental officials that lay the groundwork, that set the precedent for our participation in regional affairs. These are the people that think beyond boundaries, that practice collaborative leadership. And I want to recognize 3 people who did this for Worthington and who laid the groundwork for our and my participation in MORPC today. This includes former City Council President Dr. Lou Gorey and 2 MORPC William H. Anderson Award winners, which is a recognition for exemplary service to MORPC's board. Former City Manager Dave Elder, former Chair of the board and William H. Anderson Award winner, the incomparable former City Council member, Lou Briggs. Lou, David, and Lou, thanks for being here today. Now, if you drive on a major road, ride the bus, bike on our trail system, if you're concerned about the air you breathe or energy efficiency in Central Ohio, you have been affected by MORPC's planning efforts. And there is an incredible group of staff at MORPC who are working every day to strengthen our region through collaborative initiatives and programs. These people are who make the collaboration that we call MORPC happen. Can we have the MORPC team stand and be recognized for their outstanding work? This great team is led by our Executive Director, William Murdoch, who you've already met, and I have to say there is nobody more enthusiastic about Central Ohio, about the role that local governments play and good planning play in its success. We are so appreciative of the work that he and his team are doing on behalf of all of us to support Ohio's fastest growing region. Now, this growth and the efforts of many in this room have resulted in significant change in Central Ohio. And William's already been talking about that. And as he touched on, change is happening everywhere we look. All of our members report activity in their communities. And we've talked about this before, right? This is good. We are growing. We are becoming more diverse in many ways, both in who lives here and in our economy. We have incredible businesses, universities, well-run governments and not-for-profits, large and small, and quite frankly, I think we can all see the momentum. So MORPC is focused, as we deal with this, on providing important data and analysis so that we can make informed decisions, have informed conversations, and yes, sometimes tough conversations about the paths before us. And that is why we are here today, why we do this event. The trends you hear about today pose some interesting choices and challenges. We hopefully will make you think about Central Ohio's strategic direction, how we will converse about where Central Ohio goes next, and what steps we need to take to fulfill Central Ohio's incredible potential. So at this time, I would like to invite William, our Executive Director, and our newly elected officers to join me on the stage. Vice Chair Rory McGinnis from the City of Columbus, and Secretary Karen Angelou, City Council member from the City of Gahanna. Our 2 new officers are extraordinarily dedicated public servants, and we are fortunate to have these leaders helping guide our regional efforts. As they join me on the stage, I want to say that I am particularly humbled to have this opportunity and honored, and more so because I am following somebody who's set a very high mark for the role of MORPC Board Chair. Our outgoing Board Chair, Eric Phillips, from Marysville in Union County, is a compassionate leader. He has been a tireless, very hard worker, not only for his communities in Union County and for the city of Marysville, but for MORPC and many other entities that he supports and serves. He's been a champion for economic development and for good government, both in our state and in our region, and he has become a good friend. So at this time, we have a special thank you message for Eric. And Eric, will you please join us on the stage? MORPC is an organization with over 60 member local governments. And Eric Phillips has been a leader that has sought to get each of those governments and all of those members involved in the process.
Eric Phillips is someone who works with businesses every day in his day job in Union County and as an economic developer here in the Columbus region.
He has this uncanny ability to combine his economic development experience, a perspective from a fast-growing part of the region, Marysville and Union County, with an ability to bring people together across community lines to help them understand just how important it is for us to work together as a region and to try out new ideas.
Think about what's happened in our region in the last 5 years. The North Central Outer Belt, the improvements to the Rickenbacker area, the US 33 project. All of these things are moving forward and are important to our economy and our way of life. And all of this has started and occurred while Eric Phillips has been an officer or the chair of MORPC.
Thank you, Eric, for being such a wonderful chair and for spurring us to do so much at MORPC.
There is a clear economic benefit of MORPC going forward. The work of the staff of the organization that they put back into infrastructure, planning, collaboration, cooperation is amazing, and there's a clear economic benefit of the membership. What I encourage is you only get out what you put in, and that means time and volunteerism. And I encourage communities throughout Central Ohio to become engaged in MORPC for the betterment of Central Ohio. Very humbled and honored for this award, and it's been a blessing to serve MORPC for these past years. I'm getting choked up saying this, but it really truly has been an honor, and thank you goes to MORPC. It's amazing to see how we make sausage at MORPC and really comes out at the end. To really see the collaborative effort and the, I'm thinking of food still, it's amazing. But it's amazing to see the work and the hard work of the staff and the leadership of our board. And I want to say also give a shout out to Marysville and also to Union County for allowing me to be part of this great organization. And let's all continue to work together to build a better region. So thank you very much.
The first of our 3 distinguished awards to be presented is the Regional Leadership Award. The Regional Leadership Award recognizes people in our 15-county region who make extraordinary efforts for the future of our communities. This award represents MORPC's dedication to addressing issues that go beyond community boundaries and that embrace visionary thinking. Before we announce this year's winner of the Regional Leadership Award, let's all recognize our outstanding nominees on the screen. Please join me in recognizing these nominees. This year's winner is Marilee Chenesee Zerker, former mayor and Dublin City Council member. Marilee, will you please join us on stage to accept this award?
Leadership is the capacity to translate vision into reality. Leadership is lifting a person's vision to high heights, the raising of a person's performance to a higher standard, the building of a personality beyond its normal limits. A leader takes people where they want to go. A great leader takes people where they don't necessarily want to go, but ought to be. Marilee Chinesi Zerker is the true essence of a leader. As the president, CEO of Hands On Central Ohio, Marilee not only believed it was her civic duty to create meaningful change in her community, but empowered others to do the same. For 16 years, Marilee served as a Dublin City Council member, as well as 3 consecutive terms as the mayor of Dublin. During this time, Marilee was integral in the planning and support of the I-270 and US 33 interchange project, which completely transformed a key economic development corridor in Central Ohio. During her time at MORPC, she motivated the organization and its members to increase their knowledge and involvement in the government affairs sector, elevating MORPC to a respected and relevant position as a resource on key public policy issues. Marilee's forward-thinking initiatives and dedication have ensured the future vitality of our region and surrounding communities.
Congratulations, Marilee. Our next award is the William H. Anderson Award for Excellence in Public Service. This award recognizes a past or present board member who has made a significant contribution to MORPC, to the community, and to our region. And the winner of this award today is Mayor Ike Stage of Grove City. Mayor, will you please join us on the stage?
"25 years ago, Mayor Stage made a commitment to long-range planning. His forward-thinking and innovation were instrumental in making Grove City one of the largest and fastest-growing cities in Central Ohio.
Mayor Stage is one of the mayors of our first-ring suburbs in Central Ohio, such a big presence. And he has contributed so much to Central Ohio, not only to MORPC, but to Grove City and Central Ohio as well. You could always depend on Mayor Stage to ask the questions that nobody else wanted to ask in the room, the questions that people were thinking about, but no one wanted to ask.
It just amazes me, his depth of experience and knowledge, and then he can bring something up that we never even thought about. That is amazing. That's why I like him so much.
Now Mayor Stage's collaborative efforts with Inside 2050 are creating an even brighter future for Grove City. Grove City 2050 addresses zoning and innovative land use practices that make Grove City an even better place to live, work, and raise a family.
I've had the pleasure of sitting beside Mayor Ike Stage in many a policy meeting. He watches, he observes, he listens, and then he'll just ask maybe 1 or 2 questions. And those questions will get everybody thinking about how we can impact Central Ohio through policy for progress and development.
Good afternoon. I have the honor of presenting our final award today, the William C. Habig Collaborative Award. This honor represents outstanding efforts and innovation in creating partnerships and sharing resources. This award captures the dedication to collaboration of Bill Habig. Bill served as MORPC's executive director for over 30 years. And today he continues to serve the region as a current MORPC board member representing the community of Granville Township. Let's take a moment to congratulate all of our nominees for this prestigious award. And this year's award goes to the Sustaining Scioto Project. I would like to invite representatives of the Sustaining Scioto Project to the stage.
The Sustaining Scioto Project identified risks and adaptive management strategies to the Columbus, Ohio region's water resources due to climate change. This proactive, science-based study was completed to ensure that Central Ohio has clean and secure water resources for current residents and businesses, and to sustain needs for future growth. Through watershed modeling, the group was able to assess the impacts of changing weather patterns and regional development on water resources within the Upper Scioto watershed. The project was collaborative, coordinating with regional entities, including 7 water utilities that are projected to supply 3.2 million people with clean drinking water by 2090. The Sustaining Scioto Plan provides utilities, developers, agriculture, and industry in the region with an understanding of the potential risks imposed by climate change, and also serves as a guide for future investment and planning for water resource management within the region, ensuring that our water is clean and abundant for generations to come.
Please welcome to the stage Delaware County Commissioner Gary Merrill and Christina Villacinda Farr.
It is both timely and appropriate that we are welcoming Dr. Jim Johnson today, because he is perhaps best known to this audience for his work in disruptive demographics. These are defined as changes in the population that dramatically transform social, economic, and political institutions. As one of the 3 commissioners in Delaware County, myself, Commissioner Lewis, and Commissioner Benton, we deal with the reality of disruptive demographics every day. The population growth that we have been experiencing for the last 35 years not only creates the pressure that my colleagues and I have to react to, but it also challenges us to be proactive if we want to stay ahead of these pressures and guide the growth to come. The demographic changes we are experiencing are impacting housing, transportation, education, healthcare, and labor, as Dr. Johnson's work has found. How much growth are we talking about? In 1980, Delaware County had about 54,000 residents spread across its 459 square miles. Today, we have an estimated 190,000 residents, and that may be conservative, a 350% increase. Over the next 25 years, it's anticipated we'll have 282,000 residents. That would be another 50% increase. Will we be ready? We'll have to be ready. There's probably no better example to show how we're reacting and how we're proacting than by looking at our roads and our bridges. When the explosive growth first hit, beginning around 1995, our county engineer, Chris Bosman, who's with us today, identified that nearly 1/3 of the 370 bridges in the county were structurally deficient. Increasing traffic occurring in all directions in our county because of population growth was only going to put an additional burden on these bridges. So our engineer and his team, working with the current commissioners at that time, undertook an aggressive repair and replacement project that has reduced the number of structurally deficient bridges in our county from 125 to 19 today. On the proactive side, our engineering team has led the way on building new roads and bridges. This year alone, they will oversee 16 major projects at an estimated cost of $85 million. They are being financed through a combination of federal, state, and of course, local dollars. The success of our reacting and proacting is reflected in Delaware County's recent upgrade, as of just last week, you may have read, to dual AAA credit ratings from Moody's and Standard & Poor's. making us only the second county in the state, Franklin County being the other, to hold a pair of the highest possible credit ratings available. The case can be made that disruptive demographics are what has pushed us to managing our resources and serve our constituents better. And we welcome the insights that Dr. Johnson will now share with us in a few moments. In navigating these inevitable challenges we all will face with the disruptive demographics that will affect all of us going forward. Thank you.
Gracias, Commissioner. Buenas tardes. Ah, saben español. As one of the fastest growing counties in the state, your comments certainly demonstrate how Delaware County is embracing change. And with that, I am so honored to introduce today's keynote speaker, Dr. Jim Johnson. Dr. Johnson has achieved an impressive academic career and national reputation as an expert in demographic trends. He currently is a distinguished professor of strategy and entrepreneurship in the business school at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. He is also director of the Urban Investment Strategy Center at the Frank Hawkins Keenan Institute of Private Enterprise. Dr. Johnson leads his Center of Developing Innovative Approaches to Revitalize Urban Areas. This center also focuses on teaching government, community, and nonprofit leaders on how to become more entrepreneurial in their operations. He's an expert on community and economic development, the effects of demographic changes on the U.S. workplace, urban poverty, public policy, and workforce diversity issues. Dr. Johnson is widely quoted in national media, as often appears on National Network News program. Fast Company magazine named Dr. Johnson one of the 17 brightest thinkers and doers in the new world of work. Please join me in welcoming Dr. Jim Johnson.
Very much. Thank you, sir. Good afternoon. I am delighted to be with you and have the opportunity to share a few thoughts with you today. Before I begin my formal remarks, let me thank all of you for the outstanding work that you do on the behalf of the Central Ohio region. I'm in awe of the impressive work that you do. I'm a little nervous because of the position that you all put me in right after lunch. And usually when I find myself in this unenviable position, I begin my remarks by whispering to my audience the same thing that the famed Hollywood actress Elizabeth Taylor said to each one of her 8 husbands when they were standing at the altar about to be married. She whispered to each one of them and said, "Honey, I won't keep you long." And so I promise to be quick, fast, and in a hurry in terms of my remarks for you this afternoon. Ladies and gentlemen, as you have heard repeatedly from all the previous speakers, your region, but more generally our nation, every other region, and every other state in our great nation is in the midst of an unprecedented demographic transformation. The kinds of changes that you are dealing with and that all of us will have to deal with, you're going to have to buckle your seatbelt. And if you ignore them at your own peril, and I'm sure you won't ignore them, but there is nothing more predictable than demography. I assure you, if you're 5 years old today, 5 years from now, you're going to be 10 years old. Your birthday comes the same time, you just add 1 to what it was last year, and voila, you got it. In fact, I'm pretty successful, and I get a big raise every year when I go in to get my annual review with my dean, because, I walk in and I tell her, I said, last year when we met, I was 60 years old. You know what? I'm 61 now. And you know what? When we meet next year, I'm going to be 62. It's called forecasting. I'm the best in the business. There are, ladies and gentlemen, two colorful demographic processes that are going to undergird the profound and impressive growth that you find yourselves in the midst of in Central Ohio. Those two colorful processes are what I call the browning and graying of America, and I want to talk a little bit about what that means for you. I want to talk about what they are, those two colorful demographic processes, and then I want to talk about something that I think you need to pay attention to, because to my way of thinking, it will challenge your ability to thrive, prosper, and compete in an economy and society where the new normal is certain uncertainty. And so that's what I want to do. These two colorful processes are what we call the browning and graying of America. Let me talk about each one of them in turn. The browning of America is about immigration-driven population change in our country. Quick immigration history. If you look at our history in this country dating back to the beginning of the 20th century coming forward, you will see that immigration in our country was kept relatively low for until about the mid-1960s. And then you see a huge takeoff. Well, ladies and gentlemen, 1965 is a crucial year in our immigration history, because prior to 1965, we had an immigration law in our country that said if we were going to allow the foreign-born to come to our country, it was important that they not upset the existing racial and ethnic balance of our country as it existed at the turn of the 20th century. So we had an express preference for people who were phenotypically similar to Anglo-Saxons, people who would come to America, learn to speak English, anglicize their names, and this thing called a melting pot was supposed to work. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, to the mid-1960s, we operated on a quota system that was geographically discriminatory against people from certain regions of the world. You go back to the 1880s, for an example, we had something called the Chinese exclusion law. They shouldn't be allowed to come to America because it would be, quote unquote, difficult to assimilate into mainstream society. Fast forward to the first decade of the 20th century, we defined what became known as the Asiatic Barrier region that included Japan. Shouldn't be allowed to come to America because it would be, quote unquote, difficult to assimilate. We had a host of theories about cultural inferiority and the like as a justification. We had a preference for people from Europe and an opposition to people from Asia, Latin America, and the Middle East. That all changed in 1965 with an amendment to our immigration law called the Hart-Celler Act of that year that in essence eliminated those discriminatory provisions based on geographic origin, opening up the doors of our country to people who heretofore had not been allowed to come. This 1965 is so profound in our immigration history that we refer to everybody arriving prior to 1965 as the old immigrants and the invisible minorities, and anybody arriving since 1965 as the new immigrants and the visible minorities, because they come from regions of the world that their phenotype is different from the Anglo-Saxon model. And yes, they can go through the assimilation process, but you will always know that they're different. So takeaway number one, undergird the browning of America, fundamental shift in geographic origin. Takeaway number two, fundamental shift in phenotype. Takeaway number three, you see a huge increase in the number of people entering our country who are foreign born. We have about 42 million people today. Who are they? About 46% of them are Hispanic. You will note that the second largest group are Asian today. Ladies and gentlemen, these are people of color. You will note that the current foreign born population, only about 18% of that population is non-Hispanic white. When I'm talking about the browning of America, I'm talking about the source of growth in our country and ultimately in your region. At the same time that immigration has transformed the complexion of our society, marriage patterns are changing dramatically too. The out-marriage rate means you marry someone that is of a different racial or ethnic group than you belong to, doubled between 1980 and about 2008. Among newly married couples, it went from about 7% of all marriages to about 15% of all marriages, and among currently married people, went from 3 to about 8%. Well, who's doing all this hooking up in strange ways here? Well, about 41% of those marriages are between Hispanics and whites. About 15% of them are between Asians and whites, and in about 16% of the cases, both marriage partners are non-white. You will note that black-white marriages are the smallest share, and there's this other group, I don't know who the heck they are, but they're having fun. What is the significance of this, ladies and gentlemen? The second most rapidly growing population in America behind the Hispanic population are people who self-identify as two or more races. This has a profound impact and implication for your society. What does it mean? Be careful how you portray family life in your marketing and materials, because this is further contributing to the browning of America. Some of you may be familiar with the Cheerios commercial that was released at the Super Bowl a couple of years ago. African-American male lying on a couch asleep, and a little kid comes up to dump Cheerios on his chest. Heart healthy, they're supposed to be. And it's obvious that this kid is a mixed kid, and then the camera shifts to the mother, and it's obvious that she's white. If you follow the Twitter and Facebook traffic, people didn't like that. They weren't happy about portraying the realities of life. But I love Cheerios. Heart healthy. And the company does too, so they weren't moved or bothered by the negative. So the following year at the Super Bowl, they had another commercial with the same family, and the woman pregnant again. What are they saying? This is life, ladies and gentlemen. This is the way our society is occurring. These marriage patterns are transform the complexion of society. This has everything to do with the marketing of your region and what it says about your ability to be inclusive and the like, because it reflects the realities of what's going on. If you look at our nation and how big this browning of America thing is, we added 27 million people to our population during the first decade of the new millennium. 92% of them were non-white, and about 56% of them were Hispanic. If you come to your region, you added about 239,000 people. 59 or 60% of them were non-white. About 17% were Hispanic in terms of the change that are going on in your region. Ladies and gentlemen, this is so important to your future in this region, because what you have to understand is that migration and immigration are age-selective processes. What does that mean? It means far more young people migrate and immigrate than old people. That means old people don't move. They move slower and at a lower propensity than young folk. There's one more piece to that story. Don't repeat this anywhere, because you could lose your job. In fact, I'm denying I say this before I say it. Young people are more likely to have children than old folk. When you add that reality to the fact, ladies and gentlemen, young people coming into your region, higher fertility among them, it has an impact on your age structure. Look at it. You can choose any year. I chose 2009. In 2009, the median age of the U.S. population was 37 years old. Half of us older than that, half of us younger than that. Somebody tell me what the median age of a Hispanic in America is. 27 years old. Now, in this crazy immigration debate we're having here, how many of you have heard that Hispanics are a burden on the healthcare system? Heard that? Don't get quiet on me now. What kind of major health problems do you have when your median age is 27? Now, before you answer that, somebody tell me what the median age of a white non-Hispanic is in America. Third row. 41. Ladies and gentlemen, when you're in your 20s, you have acute crisis. Usually you've done something stupid, like stick your finger in the lawnmower and you got to go get it glued back on. But when you move from age 27 to your mid-40s, you move from acute conditions to what kind? Chronic. Which one costs the most? Trust me, chronic. I lost my wife to cancer at 48 years old. Her treatment in the last 6 months of life, $5,000 a week. Ladies and gentlemen, a lot of the stuff you hear in this immigration debate makes no sense. These are young people that will have to propel your region and our country moving forward. There's one more piece to the story that you need to understand as you think about the future of your region and the future growth and the source of your growth is, ladies, there's something in demography called completed fertility, okay? I won't give you the big theory about that. You want that, come to Chapel Hill, pay us $100,000 a year, we'll tell you. Let me give you the pop version, ladies. Completed fertility is when you tell your husband, go take out the trash. Ain't nothing else happening here. Okay? Completed fertility for women occurs between the ages of 40 and 44. There's this huge precipitous drop in fertility around that age. Somebody tell me what the median age of a non-Hispanic white female is in America. 43 years old. Now, every woman below white, not Hispanic, is a woman of color. And what you will notice is there's a 10 to 20 year gap in the median age. Do you know what that gap is? That's your fertility gap. We know exactly where growth is going to come from among the youth. Now, I know there's some of y'all in your 40s in the room tomorrow, I'm going home and fix this tonight. I say, go ahead. Leave now. At every stoplight, let it cycle through about 3 times. You might go home and squeeze out one, but you're not going to do what a 27-year-old can do. It's a fundamental. It's biology, ladies and gentlemen. It's not sociology. So buckle your seatbelt. Not only are you going to have growth, the source of your growth is going to transform your communities in ways that are unimaginable. We're talking about a heck of a color adjustment. You see it in the birth curve. Look, 1990, 66% of all births in America to non-Hispanic white families. That dropped to 50% by 2008. And for the first time in history in 2011, non-Hispanic white family births dropped below 50%, unlikely to go the other direction because of our age structure and declining fertility. You see where your growth is going to come from. We're talking about a heck of a color adjustment. When I talk about the browning of America, 67% of the U.S. population was non-Hispanic white in 2005, 74% 10 years earlier than that. We now think by 2050 the non-Hispanic white share is going to drop below 50% at around 47%. You see where that growth is going to occur. What has happened in your region, as everybody's talked about, you're growing like crazy here in the region in terms of growth. These things have already been touched. But if you look at and unpack it by race and ethnicity, during the first decade of the new millennium, you added about 239,000 people, growth rate of 12.3%. Your white population grew by about 6%, but you will see double-digit growth in just about everybody else on there except American Indians, Alaskan Natives, and when I'm talking about the browning of America, I'm talking about the source of where that growth is going to come from and going to transform your region moving forward. This is your age structure. It looks a lot like the nation as a whole. 2010, 2014, you see the population as a whole in their 40s for the most part. You see whites in their 40s for the most part, but you see blacks and Latinos, you see that those are younger populations. Do the math, look at your fertility rates. That's where your growth is going to come from moving forward. It's 2010, 2015, you continue to grow really, really rapidly in your region. That's already been covered. If you want to understand, though, it's not even growth across your region. To understand how you're doing, we use the balance of population change equations. How does it change in your community? Well, it changes as a function of inflows and outflows. Inflows, births, and people moving into your community. Outflows, deaths, and people doing what? Leaving your community. It's at the interaction of those things that you evaluate what's going on in your particular community. That's the typology. You want to be in the top 3. That's all growing. You don't want to be in the bottom 3 because that's you're in trouble if you're there. You all have about 8 counties with balanced growth, 1 with natural growth, and 6 counties that are emptying out, where out-migration exceeds in-migration. Central Ohio, natural change and migration. Migration, almost balanced, but a little bit more on the natural change because of young age structure here. Migration is a big component of what's going on here. International migration is a huge piece for your region, further diversifying the community. Those are your balanced growth counties where both natural change, births exceeding deaths, and in-migration exceeding out-migration is the order of the day. You have 1 natural growth county here. Out-migration is greater, but it's offset by excess of births over deaths, and these are the empty and out counties. You're having increases in births over deaths, but your out-migration rate is much greater than the in-migration rate, so you're losing population in those regions. So you got an uneven pattern of growth. At the same time that immigration is driving and transforming your community and international migration, our nation and your region is experiencing aging, what we call the graying of America. So you might ask the question, well, how do I know if I'm part of the graying of America? There are 4 ways, okay? Number 1, if you have difficulty seeing this screen, you're part of the graying of America. Number 2, if you got to go to the restroom twice during this presentation, you're part of the graying of America. And number 3, if you fall asleep, you're just an old codger, you ate too much for lunch. Graying of America is about 3 things. It's about changes in longevity, declining fertility, and this group of us who are called baby boomers. Let's look at it. We're living longer, ladies and gentlemen, today through improvements in medical care, advances in dietary patterns. We're more active, living better, and we got this thing called regenerative medicine now. We got a scientist in North Carolina has regenerated a bladder, so your bladder wear out, we'll sell you no, when you just tell me what color you want. We're working on every body part. We now think that living to 100 on a routine basis is well within reach, and there's one school of thought that says a person who will live to 130 has already been born. The average person turning 65 today is going to live another 18.7 years in terms of population growth. At the same time, our fertility rates are down. Ladies and gentlemen, there's something called a total fertility rate. It's, if you are a couple, it's the number of kids you need to have to replace yourself. In a statistical sense, you need to have 2.1 kids to replace yourself, okay? Don't ask me about the 0.1, you just got to be rocking and rolling, okay? It's 2.1 because some babies die, unfortunately, at birth. If the total fertility rate, the replacement rate is 2.1, who's replacing themselves in America? You got one group. You got one group. You can build a wall around your country and keep folks out if you want to. Non-Hispanic whites have had a total fertility rate of between 1.8 and 1.9 for 2 decades. Now, quite frankly, I don't know how you get 0.9 of a kid. I taught a few of them in my day. But it takes 2.1 kids to replace yourself. Ladies and gentlemen, this is no joke. This is serious stuff for your region. So how you respond to some of these big policy decisions is going to impact those numbers that we're talking about. So be mindful and understand that the devil's in the details of some of this stuff. And then there's a group of us who were born between 1946 and 1964. Let me see a show of hands. Look around you. Some of y'all lying, but it's okay. Look around you. Everybody that has their hand up is part of the post-World War II hormonal rush in America. Our fathers went off to World War II and came back home and got busy. Got busy to the tune of producing 81 million of us. We are the boomer generation. Ladies and gentlemen, on January 1st of 2011, the first baby boomer born in America turned 65 and became eligible for what? Everything. Every day, 7 days a week, 365 days of the year, for the next 20 years, we boomers will be turning 65 to the tune of 8,000 per day. Every day, 7 days a week, 365 days of the year. You will note that's what we call it the silver tsunami. It's the pig and the python moving through. See, 81 million people, 19 million people moving into that cohort, growth rate about 32%. You will note that the second most rapidly growing population was the 65 plus population, growing at about 15%. Ladies and gentlemen, when somebody tells you that Social Security is a pay-as-you-go system, do you know what that means? It means while you're paying in, somebody else is spending what? Your money. In order for you to get something out, that 25 to 44-year-old population needs to be working. Oh, well, it needs to be growing, first of all, and they need to be working. But they are not growing. Why would the 25 to 44-year-old population not be growing? Well, some of it is baby bust. Y'all ain't doing your job. You stop having children in sufficient numbers. But the other thing, ladies and gentlemen, some of the debilitating diseases that beset us boomers and pre-boomers later in life are now besetting Gen X and Gen Y earlier in life, leading to the early onset of death and disability. You cannot pay your bills when you have that kind of reality going on in society. Lifestyle factors, obesity, diabetes, and how many wars have we fought in the last 20 years? And who gets taken out in war? Young people that you need to be paying into the system to thrive and prosper. So this is no joke. That's how often we're aging, 8,000 per day. And if you look at your region on the right here and compare it with the nation, what you will see is that you are growing more rapidly among your boomer population and the 65 plus population. The only saving grace for you, you're not losing as many in the 25 to 44 population, but your under 25 population is growing more rapidly. But those two numbers, they don't give you enough replacement to deal with the kinds of challenges that you're facing. So it's the composition of that growth too that you got to be mindful of. And I know we've already talked about this, you all are on it. But here's the thing, ladies and gentlemen, that keeps me up at night about our browning and graying of America. At the intersection of that growth, can I have 2 minutes? Oh, I do? Okay, good. We'll see y'all. We'll get out of here by midnight. Ladies and gentlemen, at the intersection of this browning and graying of America is a challenge. I want to show it to you at a national level, then I want to bring it down to your region. This is a racial typology of U.S. counties that I'm going to develop for you. And these counties right here, they are known as racial generation gap counties. In these counties, the adult voting age population are predominantly white, aging empty nesters, but the school age population is predominantly non-white. What kind of support for public education you think you get there? They ain't got no dog in the K-12 education fight. My children are out of school. I'm most concerned about what? Retirement amenities, crime, and safety. Okay? Those counties are majority-minority counties. The adult voting age population is predominantly non-white. School age population is predominantly non-white. Lots of interest in public education. They're all low-wealth counties, not enough money to do anything. The rest of the counties, the gray, are majority counties where the adult voting age population is predominantly white, school age population is predominantly white, but about a fifth of the kids who go to school in those majority counties are kids of color. But if you peer beneath the veneer and look into where the kids are going to school, you will find that the kids of color are in one of two situations. Either they're attending racially isolated schools within those districts, or in the quote-unquote good schools, they are underrepresented in the college prep tracks. You know, honors, AP, and IB. In other words, ladies and gentlemen, I just painted a picture that where the massive growth, what's going to drive growth are going to be young kids of color, but they're between a rock and a hard place through no fault of our own in our education system. You cannot thrive, you cannot compete, thrive, and prosper where you leave kids behind like that. That's whammy number one. Whammy number two is segregation. Those neighborhoods right there that's at the census tract level are 60% or more non-Hispanic white. The gold ones are 60% or more non-white. And the yellow here are tracts that are transitioning from white to non-white. Ladies and gentlemen, that's separate and unequal. And we call it hyper-segregation because it rivals the segregation that exists prior to Brown versus the Board of Education in 1954, the year that I was born. Whammy number two. Whammy number three is poverty. Those neighborhoods right there, extreme poverty, 40% or more of the kids are growing up in households with incomes below the poverty level. Those are high poverty areas, 26 to 39% is it? Yeah, 25, 39% of the population incomes below the poverty level. We call those two together concentrated poverty, and the yellow is below 25% poverty. We call that concentrated affluence. When I talk about a triple whammy of geographic disadvantage, I'm talking about all three of those things. The average kid walking in the door of our school system today, particularly if they're a kid of color, and increasingly many poor white kids walking in schools of color, are victims of this triple whammy of geographic disadvantage. 9.8 million kids nationally, that's 93% white. Two of those things, about 12 million kids, 81%. You see it gets lower and lower if you move down the whammy sector. You can't pay your bills, ladies and gentlemen. You can't survive, thrive, and prosper when you leave that many kids behind the education system. And those are food deserts. I was blown away. I'm in one of those regions where we're like Central Ohio. I'm in Durham. We're all that in a bag of chips plus dip. And I have a school that I run for vulnerable children. And a little girl told me one day about 3 months ago when I made the mistake of asking her what did she have for dinner the night before. She looked at me and she says, "Last night was not my turn to eat." She said, "In our household, we rotate who gets to eat, and I get to eat every third night." Now, I'm not talking about some poor county somewhere. I'm talking about the Research Triangle Park. You got kids who get to eat, if they're lucky, every third night. And we talk about we're going to be competitive in the global marketplace moving forward, right? And those are suspensions. short-term suspensions. 3 million kids suspended from school each year, including 250,000 for misdemeanor charges as early as the first grade. It used to be the third grade, but we had a kid in North Carolina, Apex, got suspended and referred to the police for threatening the first grade teacher with his scissors. Now, I've been out of school a long time, but I remember my first grade scissors. They wouldn't even cut the construction paper. And now we what's going on in your school system where you get a kid referred to the police for misdemeanor charges early in the first grade? And that follows you the rest of your life. Those are Latino kids. So let's look at this thing. I'm just going to run through it for your region. I've developed it. You all are a majority set of counties in your region by my typology. School-age population, about 29% non-white, from over 530-some thousand kids, about 71% white. You see how the non-white is broken up. Let's look at segregation. Those neighborhoods there are predominantly white. Those are predominantly non-white, and the yellow ones are transitioning from white to non-white. That's segregation, extreme. And you can look at this on your own. We'll leave the slide deck. I've broken down the kids across those typologies for you. How about poverty? Those neighborhoods are 40% or more. 40% or more of the kids are growing up in households with incomes below the poverty level. Those 25 to 39% of kids growing up in households incomes below the poverty. That's concentrated poverty, ladies and gentlemen, and that's concentrated affluence. So you have the same kinds of things. You can look at the numbers there, that triple whammy that exists, and I think the question is, those are mostly young, we're talking about children, so that's the next generation of talent that has to propel your nation, thank you, your community. But there's some golden opportunities here among you old fuddy-duddies, basically. The aging boomer market is a $17 trillion market, $3 trillion in this country. And boomers will redefine what it means to be old. Y'all heard this thing about 60 is the new 30? Huh? Yeah, they got these women on TV wearing yellow spandex, twitching, talking about 60 is the new 30. I told you I turned 60 last year. Let me tell you, 60 is 60. But what you have to understand, the majority of baby boomers work and play little different from those in their 40s. They're not obsessing over arthritis and constant dementia. Seniors don't like to be singled out and minded that they're old. That's what that 60 is the new 30 is thing. So when you're marketing, the company that does a great job of making products for seniors take great pains not to make products for who? Seniors. It's a nice thing, but understand that it's a huge thing that you need to be mindful of, because boomers are the last generation with any money. Everybody's focusing on millennials. I don't know why. Half of millennials don't work. In fact, we call them boomerang crumb snatchers. They went to college, graduated with a ton of debt, and where are they? Back home. Not buying cars, not marrying, not buying houses, just tell them I'll move over and I ain't leaving for 20 years. Hey, can't have it. And then there's this thing, and then there's this thing called encore entrepreneurship. If you're running an entrepreneur economy, ladies and gentlemen, one of the things that we've discovered is that 1/4 of the 44 to 70 population is interested in becoming entrepreneurs. Americans 55 to 64 start business ventures at a higher rate than any other group, including the 20-somethings, and 23% of new entrepreneurs were 55 to 64 in 2010, up from 14% in 1996. 50% of businesses started by the 50-plus entrepreneurs still operating 5 years later. Why? Because these encore entrepreneurs are alleged to have double ESP, experience, expertise, seasoned judgment, and proven performance, and they're leveraging those things in the marketplace. So one smart strategy is to create conditions for what? More encore entrepreneurship in the region, and that is one of the keys. And how do you I'm not going to spend much time on this because it's clear you all are already on this with your age-friendly community movement thing, but how do you help seniors age gracefully in their homes and in their communities? One thing that people don't realize, ladies and gentlemen, that we have come to recognize from the research community, the aging process now starts in your 30s. And so it's not just about caring for us old fuddy-duddies, it's about how do you build age-friendly communities for the entire population of people. How do you keep people out of hospitals, emergency rooms, nursing homes, long-term care facilities, and what role can digital technologies to help people age in place, because the caregiver population is really going down compared to the number of people who will be aging into these categories. Those are the kinds of things y'all got to look forward to as you age. And everything in the built environment has to change as a function of an aging population, ladies and gentlemen. No offense to you, this is a pretty facility, but it is not age-friendly. Look at the chairs you're sitting in. What's wrong with them? Got no arms and handles. This place is probably about one slip or fall from a major lawsuit. I'm saying this is every place. I'm not just saying this to be funny. It's every place because our built environment is not designed to be senior friendly. This lovely couple right here, when you go out on the pedestrian crossing signal out there assumes probably that the average person walking the street walks 4 feet per second. The average senior walks 2 to 3 feet per second. Everything has to change in the built environment. Vancouver, Canada just outlawed doorknobs in all new construction, including private homes. Why? Because a doorknob might as well be a 9mm gun held to your head if a fire breaks out and you're what? Arthritic and can't do it. So, visitability of institutional settings, whether they're private sector, nonprofit, government sectors, the library, the courthouse, everything needs to be visitable. It won't be children's playgrounds in the future. They're going to be senior playgrounds and fitness parks that are really, really big. Universally accessible transport systems, complete street ordinances, extended walk times of pedestrian crossings, and senior-friendly street signage that none of us want to own up to that we need. Huge opportunities here to cater products and labeling to emerging groups. We got to design and package products with equality in mind, and everything needs to be easy to read, easy to understand, easy to carry, easy to enjoy, safer to use. But if you look at what we're doing, we're building for a current population, when in reality, given the booming population, these are the kinds of things that we need to be doing here. Everything has to be changed. And ladies and gentlemen, I personally think that here's the key to job creation and community economic development is transforming our communities to age-friendly communities, because there's a huge opportunity there. And you got to be able to manage this transition from the gray into the browning. I don't see how you compete without embracing immigrants. Devise strategies to deal with that triple whammy. Invest in business development, job creation for the elder care economy and diverse ethnic markets, and pursue age-friendly communities. Because I'm one of them boomers, I'm tired and I'm going to sit down.
So growing, changing, I think we've got a lot of work to do. I think we've had some pretty stunning presentations, some pretty stunning information, and I think Dr. Johnson gave us some compelling stats and figures and some really great work to do. So let's give him another Central Ohio round of applause. And I know we're all taking away new phrases, Dr. Johnson. Mine are silver tsunami and boomerang crumb snatchers. We'll maybe focus on the first one. The second one, maybe we'll stick to millennials. But, well, we've had a great event today. And before I let you go, I have two things for you. So first, we're having our own call to action today because of transportation options. And what I'd like you to do is to participate in something we call the Commuter Challenge. We've got a number of partners on this. It starts June 1st. I want you to take it home, share it with your employees, share it with your communities. It's all about looking at different ways to use transportation in Central Ohio, walking, biking, bus, all of our options. Car sharing, ride sharing, all of it. So we are looking forward to having you participate, and if that's not enough, there are prizes so you can win money. So please do participate in that. And the very last thing, we've got a lot of compelling information here, a lot of change in Central Ohio, a lot of work to do. I want you to know that MORPC, our team, our board, we are a resource and a service for you and for all of Central Ohio. Don't hesitate to reach out. I want you to call or email or stop by. We value your investment. We value your involvement and support. We need to get ahead of change in Central Ohio. Let's get started. I look forward to working with you this coming year. Thanks for being here. Have a great weekend.